Today we are going to move on and start doing something called absolute value inequalities. Earlier this year when we did equations, we did absolute value equations. And I don't know if you recall this or not, but when we did the absolute value equations, we would create two equations and solve them both. And it's the same thing with this, except now, like with other inequalities, we have to graph them at the end, okay? So basically the steps are, and we're not going to do the first step yet. That's actually, we'll do that at the end because it's a little bit more complicated. The first step technically is to move any numbers outside the absolute value signs over to the other side of the inequality sign, if needed, okay? So that would be like this problem right here. And the second step, which is technically going to be the first step for the first couple problems we do, is to make two problems and solve each. And the way we do that is we keep one the same and we make the second one, we flip the sign and make the second problem negative, okay? And then you're going to graph both of them on a number line. All right, so here's what I mean by this. Okay, so for this one it says a number x, the absolute value of a number x is greater than or equal to positive 2. So we make two problems. We don't have anything outside of this, of the sign like we do here, right? So we're going to make two problems. One problem, two problem, okay? The first problem will be x is greater than or equal to 2, okay? Just like it says here. The second problem though is going to be x is less than or equal to negative 2, okay? So all we do is we flip the sign to the other side and make this number on the right side negative, okay? So now we can graph it. So the first one says x is greater than 2, greater than or equal to 2. So that's going to be a closed circle at 2, the arrow pointing this way. And then x is going to be less than or equal to negative 2. Again, that's going to be a closed circle, and the arrow is pointing this way. If you remember the arrow trick, you can arrow that way, arrow this way, okay? And if you recall, because they're pointing in opposite directions, that could also be or. So you could say that x is going to be greater than 2 or less than or equal to negative 2. Okay, but that's basically all you do. You make two problems, and then you solve them, and then you graph them. All right, the second one. So the second one is the absolute value of x plus 5 is less than 3. So we're going to make two problems. There's one, there's two. Okay. The first one is again x plus 5 is less than 3. The second one will be x plus 5 is going to be greater than negative 3. Again, we flip our sign and we make the number on the right negative, okay? Now it's a one-step inequality. We can go about solving those, okay? So it's x plus 5, I'm going to subtract 5. Okay, that cancels, and 3 minus 5 ends up being a negative number. It will be x is less than negative 2, okay? That doesn't really look like a 2. There we go. And on this side, we have x plus 5 is greater than negative 3. Again, we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. That cancels. And then negative 3 minus 5 ends up being negative 8. So it is x is greater than negative 8. Okay? Now, all we have to do is graph. So it is greater than, so I'll start with this one actually. So x is less than negative 2, that means an open circle at negative 2. My arrow is pointing to the left. Okay. Then this is x is greater than negative 8, so an open circle at negative 8, and it's going to the right. So it ends up being this. Because you have to have a solution set that satisfies both of them. So the arrows don't go past this. Because these aren't included, they stop right here. So it's the solution set is in between -8, and -2. Okay? All right. So, number 3. Number 3, we actually incorporate our first step. And again, our first step is to move anything that's outside of the inequality sign over to the right. Okay? So the first thing we need to do before we make 2 problems here is we need to go ahead and add 3 to both sides because it's -3. And then I end up with a new inequality of absolute value inequality of the absolute value of x is less than or equal to +3. Now I can make 2 problems. So the first problem, second problem, the first problem will be x is less than or equal to 3. The second problem will be x is greater than or equal to -3. Okay, so you just flip your sign. Now we can graph it. So the first one is x is less than or equal to 3. If I make my little arrow here, that means I'm going to point to the left. I'm going to do a closed circle at +3. My arrow goes this way. And then x is greater than or equal to -3. Get a closed circle here. It's going to the right. It goes this way. And this is again another case where they go like this, except this is greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. So this actually keeps on going like that. Okay. Let's see here. Actually, nix that. No, it doesn't. It stays right there. Okay. Anyway. Nix what I just said there. Yeah, it stops there like it does on this one. I'm sorry. Okay. Now, let's do one more where we have, it's going to look a little bit different. It's probably been a while since we've done this kind of problem. All right, number 4. Okay. Say we had, this is number 4, x minus 4, absolute value of x minus 4, over 5 is less than or equal to 2. Okay. Now if you recall, absolute value symbols act as parentheses, right? Acts as a grouping symbol. It means that these 2 things are together. So this whole thing is one thing, and it's being divided by 5. Well, again, we have to use our first rule. This is outside, this 5 is outside of our absolute value sign, so we need to move it, okay? And the way we do that is just inverse operation. So if this whole thing is divided by 5, the inverse operation of that is to multiply by 5. So we're going to multiply both sides by 5. Okay? That cancels. And so then I end up with the absolute value of x minus 4 is less than or equal to 10. Now I can create my 2 problems and then solve and graph. Okay? So, let's see here. My first problem, which is this color, will just be x minus 4 is less than or equal to 10. Okay. The second problem will be x minus 4 is, I flipped a sign, greater than or equal to -10. Okay. Now I can solve it. Okay. So it's minus 4, so I need to add 4 to both sides on this one. And I end up with x is less than or equal to 14. That's the first one. The second one, I'm going to add 4 again. Right? That cancels. -10 plus 4 is going to be -6. So then the second one is x is less than or equal to -6. Okay? And to graph this, to make a bigger graph, so it has to go from +14. I'm going to count by 2s, just so it takes up less room. So 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, to 0. So if I need to graph something in between, like if I need to graph 7, I would just put it in between like 6 and 8. Okay. All right. And then -2, -4, -6, -8. Okay. Now I can graph it. So let's run again. The first one is x is less than or equal to 14. Less than or equal to, it means it's going to be pointing to the left. I do a closed circle at 14 because it includes that value, and then it's going to point this way. Okay. And then x is greater than or equal to -6. Again, I do a closed circle at -6, and it's pointing to the right this time. Okay. And so my solution set is in between -6 and +14. Those are all of the numbers that satisfy this inequality. Okay. All right. Make sure to write all this down, take good notes, and you can go ahead and start on your assignment.